Hey guys, welcome back to MFO. Appreciate you tuning in. I'm just getting ready to kind of get rods and reels rigged, ready to go down for our third event down in Alabama on Lewis Smith Lake. And I thought I would share with you a little bit of the prep work that I've done. And I'm not talking about having to do with rods and reels, but I'm talking about map study and kind of getting a game plan going for when I get down to Lewis Smith Lake. So using the information that I have, I'm going to use Google Earth. I'm going to use my Navionics maps. I'm going to use some paper maps. And I've also done some research looking at where tournaments have been won and where the highest place finishers have fished on Smith Lake in the past. Let me go into a little bit more detail on that when we come back. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher. I'm gonna actually get a map and show you my thinking when I'm going down to Lewis Smith Lake in terms of how I'm going to first approach Smith Lake and kind of see where we are. I mean, I know for a fact that, Guntersville isn't too far away, and Red Crest just happened, and boy, those fish were up on beds at Guntersville. So I got to imagine that on Smith Lake, that's going on there. But what stage are they in? Where are they? Let me show you how I'm going to break this down. And one of the tools that I'm going to use is my Navionics map. Now, I'm not going to sit down in my boat and use it on my graphs. I've got it on my phone. And so I can sit on my couch and I can be looking at my Navionics map and I can kind of look at different areas. Take a look at this. This is one area, and quite honestly, this will probably be the first place that I go on the first day of practice. So if you look here, I'm zooming in on, this is where we're taking off on Smith Lake. And so if we go down just around Goat Island, one of the first places that I'm going to look at, and it's not because I think there's a lot of fish there or whatever, but this gives me the ability to kind of look at different things all in one general area. So the first thing that I'm going to do is there's a point right there. So I can check and see whether there's any pre-spawn fish hanging around that point. I'm at 33 feet of water, but it's got shallow water over here. There's another point, 36 feet of water. That would be a pre-spawn kind of area to go to just to check out. Another point coming over here, but now this one is a shallow flat along a point. So I might be looking at here. Now, if I hit those 3 points and that shallow flat is where I'm seeing fish, well, guess what? That's telling me that, they're probably in that spawning mode. So I might start to, work down these. Now, docks along this area might work, or back in the back in those spawning pockets on either of these. They may not be all the way in the back. They might be here, or they might be in those shallow flats way back in the back of these coves. Now, the other thing to look at is docks. Are they along these deeper docks? These docks you can see are along a steep edge. These docks are at have a little bit more shallow water here. So my guess is there might be spotted bass along that first row of docks, whereas the others might have spawning fish. But this area that I just showed you, I can get a general idea of anywhere in the lake based on where am I seeing fish in these two bays or in these two pockets. Are they mostly in the back? Are they along the docks? Are they on the points? And once I get that information, now I can basically skip a lot of things when I go to the next bay, the next area, and okay, I'm just going to go deep. I'm just going to look for shallow water. Okay, I'm just going to look for docks. Okay, I'm just going to look for docks that are close to the shallow water. Hey, I'm just going to look for points. They aren't where I thought they were going to be. That's kind of what I can do based on what my first area that I stop in. When I say first stop, I don't mean the first place I stop, the first area that I stop, because when I go to that first area, I'm gonna check out the points, the pre-spawn kind of points. I'm gonna check out the staging areas like the docks in deeper water, and I'm gonna check the spawning areas to see how hot and heavy they are in those spawning areas. I'm also gonna be paying attention to what kind of fish and what size fish am I catching? Am I catching little buck bass that are deep, or are the bigger females back in the beds, or are they post-spawn, pre-spawn? Do they have bloody tails, and even though they got big heads, they got skinny bodies? Or are they big and fat like they're pre-spawn and they're getting ready to move? That's gonna tell me, okay, if it's first day of practice and they got big heads and fat bellies, they're gonna be moving shallower, not moving out. If they got big heads, skinny bodies, well, that tells me that if they're moving back the other direction, not in shallower. So all of that information I can hopefully glean from that first area that I stop, as long as I'm smart about how I fish that area. Pay attention to the points. Okay, file that away. Now fish some docks, see how that goes. Now fish some deeper spawning pockets, see how that goes. Pay attention to what you're catching. Take that information and apply it to further fishing as you go along. That's my tactic. That's the game plan that I've got. And I absolutely think that that's something that you can translate to your lake, especially at this time of year. I did a video about a year ago about you can tell which direction fish are going. If you've got fish that are big bellied and you're catching them midway in the creek, they're going shallower. You know they're going shallower. They're only going one direction. If you're around this time, there's some fish that are post-spawn. So if you're catching them and they got big heads and skinny bodies, well, they're only going one direction. They're moving back out. So you can pretty much gauge which direction those fish are going, and based on the numbers and how they're reacting, you can pretty much say whether or not you want to go shallower or you want to go deeper. Guys, I hope this information helps. I'd really appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and send us your comments about this. And we will see you again tomorrow for another episode of Mark Fisher Outdoors. Take care, everybody.